it? Why do you guys get so mad if this isn't a rivalry game? Why do you get so mad when you lose to Vandy?
Because you should never lose to Vandy. That's why.
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, we got you two worked up already. This is good. Okay, here we go. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, getting you set up for rivalry week, and we go to Nashville with the matchup for the bowl play-in competition between Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Of course, both teams sitting at 5-6 and trying to get to that magical 6 number. We've got the crew in from Last Word on College Football, which means Kate Halliburton representing Vandy.
Yes.
Yay. Yeah. And then we've got Mike LaValle from Last Word on College Football as well on the Tennessee side. How are you both doing tonight?
Wonderful.
Mark, doing great. Always a pleasure to join you on Mark Rogers TV.
Thank you so much. We always appreciate it. And so, Kate, ladies first. The last I saw of the Vanderbilt Commodores was a dropped pass. And when I say dropped, that's being a bit harsh on my end. A ball that could not be held onto at the Notre Dame 10-yard line that may have led to a monumental upset that would have shaken up the college football playoff situation, of course, here 6 or 8 weeks later.
Correct.
In a very well-played game, especially in the fourth quarter, that I was mesmerized by of the Notre Dame and Vandy game. Now, the last real factor that Vandy played in my world was me taking Vandy in 13 against Kentucky because I knew the Wildcats would never score enough points to beat you by 13 points. And so you helped me out there, despite, of course, what you care about was a 14-7 loss. So how do you feel about these Commodores this year?
I would say their schedule or their record is does not indicate how well they've played this season. We have had a problem finishing games. We finally pulled off that nice overtime win against Ole Miss, although I hear Ole Miss is kind of mad about that because you're not supposed to lose to Vandy. So I think this team is starting to gel at the right time. I think that it's a tough squad. I think it's the most experienced squad that Mason has had. It's just, there's been some drop balls. There's been some blocks that didn't come through. It's the little things. It's a handful of plays and, running out of time, honestly. It was mismanagement, clock management in the Missouri game. We lost 20 seconds that we could have used, and it's just little tiny things that have killed us this year.
Kate, from the few times that you've been on here, that if you state something and go out there on a limb a little bit, I'm gonna pounce. But I'm checking out the score log here, and it seems to be fairly accurate. Your assessment here of losing to Missouri by 5 points, dropping that 1 touchdown score to Kentucky. Of course, the Florida game, you had a big lead in the first half, 21-3. And you were in great shape, and the Gators were able to come back. So it seems like a fair assessment there. So, Mike, as we look at Tennessee, highlighted, of course, by the recent win against Kentucky as a big underdog, able to pull that game out. And then, of course, the Auburn game that shocked all of us as a 2-touchdown underdog. So the Tennessee Vols, aside from a few letdowns here and there earlier in the season, the progress is pretty evident.
Yeah, and that was the promise coming into the 2018 season, is that the team would look different in November than it looked in September. If you go back and look at the West Virginia game and the Florida game, the Tennessee team against Auburn and Kentucky looked significantly different. A lot of question marks, a lot of momentum built by the Kentucky game. A lot of question marks reemerged last week against Missouri. Missouri's got a lot of talent. They're a couple of plays away from being a 10-win team, but still Tennessee, it seemed to be that they regressed a little bit against Missouri. I think Missouri is a more complete team than people give them credit for. Not only do they have Drew Lock, but they also have a pretty good ground game as well. 5 returning offensive linemen. They've got 2 potential All-Americans on the defensive line. So again, I think Missouri is a team that has kind of underachieved this year. But again, the momentum that Tennessee built against Kentucky, looking much better in November than they started out in September, kind of regressed a little bit against Missouri. Inconsistency throughout the season, did not look good against Florida, did not look too bad against Georgia, came out against Auburn with a big win, and then kind of the Charlotte game, they didn't look good, then come out again against Kentucky, looked great, and then regress against Missouri. Tennessee fans are a little bit emotionally exhausted from the inconsistency. I think this is a big game going into the offseason for Tennessee. First-year head coach, kind of the program is again, hopefully coming out of a decade of dysfunction. And this is a big game just because of not necessarily because of any significance, but just kind of a lot of the surrounding stats, the history with Vanderbilt, kind of the way they've played this year. As far as actual consequences of the game, it's probably not that huge in the program. But coming off the final game of Pruitt's first year, having lost 4 of the last 5, which hasn't happened in 100 years to Vanderbilt, for the fans and for the momentum going into 2019, this is a pretty big game for Tennessee.
So, Kate, Kyle Shermer is finally going to exhaust his eligibility there at Vandy. It seems like he took over maybe for Jay Cutler, is what it feels like the transition was. He's been quarterback for quite a long time. Do you feel good about his final season here?
I do. He broke the touchdown record last week with 60 touchdowns, and he's going to break, I guess, several other passing records allegedly this game if all goes well. I think he's a great leader. I think he's comfortable with the weapons that he has. I think he's comfortable with the offense. I wouldn't want to have anybody else as my quarterback. So I think he's done a great job. So yes, Kate,
it's not surprising that you've had an effective running back come in from the Big Ten.
Yes,
to wreak havoc on the SEC with Keyshawn Vaughn from Illinois. He's knocking on the door for 1,000-yard season here.
He's fantastic. I would like about 5 more of him. I mean, and if he's getting a little beat up, I think our offensive line has made some great holes for him, but I think they have also let him get a little beat up in spots. So he's missed most of the Florida game. I actually think he missed all of the Florida games. So I think there could have been a different outcome there. So it's just kind of he's a good back. I like him. He's a redshirt junior. So let's see if he sticks around.
I would think Vanderbilt football playing in the SEC would be committed to a standard of let's win 7 or 8 games a year. And we understand that about once every 5 years, we're going to have a letdown and maybe only win 3 or 4. And we'll get to postseason play most of the time. That's a made-up standard from Mark Rogers looking at Vandy football and looking at playing in the best conference in college football. All right, I see 3-9, 4-8, 6-7, 5-7, and a possible 5-6 or 5-7. Well, a 5-6 record that would either translate to a bowl appearance and maybe 7 wins potentially, or a 5-7 season. So, is there any regard to Derek Mason's job being on the line?
I don't think so. I think that they're concerned about hiring an athletic director since David Williams is retiring. That's the next hire on the docket. I don't know. Vanderbilt is hell-bent on being a academic institution, and the athletics part of it, I think they go through the motion sometimes. I think they act like they care, but I'm not sure that the administration is ready to put money into the athletic department. Actually, I know they're not. But I mean, that's evident by the way they've acted lately. I mean, the stadium hasn't been updated. It's the worst facilities in the SEC, blah, 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 blah. It's the same old story. But, I think Mason is safe this year. But a whole new athletic director comes in. I think it's going to be his call. So until that hire is made, Mason's safe. And it's with the early signing period, you really kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you fire a coach after that. I mean, it's a mess. It's a big mess. So I think Mason is safe for another year.
Kate, you make that statement about Vanderbilt football and the perception, not from outside of campus, but by the actual administration. And then you wonder why the likes of Mike and others say it's Vandy. We're supposed to beat Vandy. Otherwise, this is going to be an embarrassment.
There's why does Vandy have to be, they can have bad facilities, but they don't need to be the redheaded stepchild. I mean, I don't understand that. Why?
Well, in the SEC, you're going to be.
Well, it sucks. They need to put money into the program, and we need to start winning.
Unfortunately, Kay, we put you in a bad spot because you've got to defend other people's decisions,
right?
And so forth. But so we appreciate the fervor. We know you love your Commodores and would like them to compete at the highest level, and they've got to do so in the best conference in college football. So, Mike, obviously with Jeremy Pruitt, he comes in this season as as a head coach, an unknown commodity. And what are your thoughts about the way he's led this program, conducted himself throughout the season?
Well, I think Jeremy Pruitt's developed as a head coach throughout the season. He's mentioned several times in his press conferences and his comments that he's learning, he's growing. He's had a couple of things I think he would take back. But all in all, for the Tennessee fans, I think they are very happy with the first season. I think if they had to use one word to describe Pruitt in Knoxville, it would be refreshing. He's a little bit different than the previous couple coaches that Tennessee's had, much more aligned to what the fan base is like, I think. A little bit less of a used car salesman and more of a cornbread football guy. So I think for the fans, it's refreshing to have someone they can relate to, someone that they kind of can like I said, relate to. I don't think the previous 2 or 3 coaches were able to establish that kind of connection to the fan base. And even with Pruitt, there's some question marks. Of course, he's an Alabama guy, grew up in North Alabama, played at MTSU for a while, then played at Alabama. So there's still some natural barriers there. 5 wins this season. If he loses on Saturday, that'll be the 3rd straight loss to Vanderbilt. It will be a 5-7 season. So he will have some work to do to connect to the fan base a little bit more in the offseason and next season. But all in all, I think the Pruitt era is off to a decent start. I think Tennessee fans are just happy to have Fulmer back in charge as the athletic director, a football guy who really focuses on just football, recruiting, practicing, and coaching in the game beyond some of the external stuff. I think they're happy to have that kind of guy at the helm, a guy that cares, by all accounts, has the locker room headed in the right direction. A big win on Saturday against Vanderbilt, 6-6, 15 more practices, or however many more practices they can fit in. 15 is not the limit, although that's kind of an urban legend. And another bowl game. Of course, Tennessee always shows up strong when they travel. So a big win on Saturday will go a long way towards that connection with the fan base and getting things kind of moving in the right direction. So again, I think Pruitt's developed this year. I think there's a couple of things he would take back, a couple of decisions, particularly early on. But he's grown as a head coach. And I think he's the kind of guy that will continue to learn and continue to grow. I don't think he is so set in his ways or self-absorbed that he doesn't do introspection. I think he probably grades himself as hard as he grades his assistant coaches and his players.
We've got Mike Laval on the line from Last Word on College Football, joined by Kate Halliburton, covering Vandy for Last Word on College Football. The Commodores and the Vols get together in Nashville on Saturday. It's an SEC Network game at 4 o'clock Eastern time. So, yes, the Missouri game was a bit of a letdown, Mike. Jared Guarantano had to leave the game, only threw 2 passes in the game. So what's his status for this Saturday?
So he practiced today. The listed injury was neck and body injury. He practiced today. Jeremy Pruitt said today in his press conference that he's day-to-day, would not commit. But he was on the practice field, so my guess is he goes. Keller Chris came in relief, looked good for the first couple drives, but in late in the second half and then the fourth quarter, the Tennessee offense really couldn't do anything. It's all about the offensive line with Tennessee. If the offensive line can get their assignments and pass protect and open some holes, the Tennessee offense has demonstrated that they can move the ball and score some points. But against Missouri and against a couple other teams, obviously Alabama, those defensive lines just ate Tennessee's offensive line up. So really, between Guarantano is the better quarterback. He gives Tennessee the better chance to win, particularly when he's fully healthy. But it's all about the offensive line. If they can protect and be manageable in the run game, Tennessee has a really good chance of winning the game.
All right, Kate, you've got to do a bit of a sales job here. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for me here in the Eastern time zone, with Alabama and Auburn kicking off at 3:30, and I couldn't even run down the rest of the games, even though I've looked at it about 14 times. The other games across the national map kicking off at that point. Why am I going to check out to Vandy? Who am I looking out for? Who are you excited to see play on Saturday?
I'm excited to see Kyle Shermer. I'm excited to see Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he's going to do great. Jared Pinkney's been stepping up. CJ Bowler has been great. We've just got an arsenal of weapons on the offense that I think are just going to be fantastic. if we can get them spread out and get them open, I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I mean, it's always, they always play each other tough, or Vandy always plays Tennessee tough. I don't know if Tennessee plays us tough, but we play them tough. So it's kind of, it'll be fun. I think it'll be a really good game to watch. I think it'll be worth keeping an eye on. How's that?
And if you win the game, you get the bowl selection, you'll be playing, let's say, the 8th place team in the ACC. So you don't have to sell yourselves to me, because if there's football on, I'm watching.
Right.
If I in any way possibly can. I'm watching any bowl game that's on because I love them. So I'm watching, but a lot of people will say, I need to get the Christmas shopping done. And so Vandy in bowl play, what's the significance of getting to a postseason game for Vandy?
Oh, we need them. I think we've only been in 8 bowl games. I mean, come on, are you serious? We deserve it. We deserve the bowl game. We deserve the extra practices. It's time for Vandy to start winning, honestly, and I think they're headed in the right directions. I think Mason has it headed in the right direction
because of the close losses this year. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, but I think
well. Yes, there's some tweaks that have been made, and there's some more tweaks that need to be made in some areas, and Mason knows what they are. And I think that we're right there. We're just trying to get over that hump.
So Kate, at some part in the conversation, I gave you a bit of a standard. Would you agree with my standard, which I'll restate, is 7 wins or so, something in that range most of the time, if you can succeed to a reasonable expectation, and maybe have a few little letdowns every 4 or 5 years, but would that be your expectation and the Vandy fan base?
I think the Vandy fan base would be very happy with that. I really do. There's a lot of them, right now that are upset that they haven't won those games. But you're relying on a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids. I mean, it's kind of, balls are going to get dropped. Blocks aren't going to get made. Stupid, penalties are going to happen. So it's just kind of, it's a bunch of kids playing an imperfect game.
Hey, Mark, I would just like to ask a question. Growing up in Nashville, I have my thoughts on this. What is the ceiling for the Vanderbilt program, regardless of whether Mason's there or not, regardless who the coach is? What is the ceiling for that program?
I don't know what the ceiling is. I don't know. I don't know if I know enough of their history to give you the ceiling. Honestly, I'll be honest with you on that one.
Isn't the ceiling something close to what Northwestern's doing right now?
Yeah, maybe. That would be, I mean, I think Northwestern has been, oh, no, Laval doesn't agree with that. I think Northwestern has been, has done a great job investing back in the football program. I mean, $207 million facility. Now they're the Big Ten West champs. I mean, that would be fantastic. It's going to take a lot for Vandy to get there.
Yeah, they're going to be a division champ with 5 losses. Also, they play in the weakest division in Power 5. And the other issue is Northwestern just contributed millions and millions of dollars on a fantastic indoor facility right on Lake Michigan. So I don't know that Northwestern's the right comparison for Vanderbilt as far as the ceiling, nor do I think Vanderbilt fans want Northwestern to be the right comparison. I mean, they're a 5-loss division champion. Is that really what you want a program ceiling to be? And this is in defense of the Vanderbilt fan here.
Do you want it to be Stanford?
Well, wait a minute. That's the ceiling in not their best year record-wise.
Sure, but again, Northwestern, the ceiling is not competing for conference championships.
The key statement in the 5 losses was division champs. If Vandy won a division championship,
oh, they would lose their minds.
Yeah, certainly. In the SEC East, certainly. Okay. I think a lot of people.
Well, it's not necessarily the worst division.
A lot of people lose their minds if Vandy was an SEC East champ.
There are worse divisions in college football than the Big Ten Western Division. So I want to. Yeah, I would really have to crunch the numbers and break it down this specific year. But overall, yeah, I would rather play in the ACC Coastal Division if I was anybody.
It'll be a good game.
I'll play Pitt and Virginia every week, and Virginia Tech and Duke and the rest of them. So categorize this. So Kate, you're going to tell me it's a rivalry, and so what does this game mean for Vandy fans? And Mike's going to give me a different perspective from the Vol side and the tradition-rich Tennessee program about the significance of this game.
Yes, Mike is going to tell you all about their trophy case and blah 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 blah. But anyway, what I have read on social media with some of the Vandy fans, they don't care what the record is as long as they beat Tennessee every year. So, I mean, it's, they like to have the bragging rights in the state because Nashville is awful orange. But it's it means a lot to the Vanderbilt fans. They are thought of as the little brother in the state, I guess, is what a lot of people say. They're the little brother to Tennessee, and people don't like that. I think Mason talked about that today in his press conference. So it's just kind of it's a huge win for Vandy fans. It's a huge bragging right for Vandy fans. Tennessee fans are going to downplay it because that's what Tennessee fans do.
Mike,
so go ahead, Lovell.
Yeah, I don't think you're right. I think Tennessee fans recognize that Vanderbilt's much more competitive. I think it's becoming a rivalry. Vanderbilt's won 4 of the last 5. If they win on Saturday, as a matter of fact, previous to 2014, previous to the first set of those 2 victories, it hadn't occurred since 1926. The last time Vanderbilt won 3 in a row was also 1926. 85 years between 1927 and 2012, 85 games, Vanderbilt had 9 wins total. So, yes, prior to the James Franklin era, Tennessee fans really didn't think of Vanderbilt as a rivalry. It was kind of the 3rd or 4th rivalry with Tennessee. Tennessee's primary rivals, Alabama, and then with the 90s came Florida and Georgia to a certain extent, Auburn to a certain extent. Kentucky historically has been our number 2 rival with the Bear Barrel, but of course Kentucky and Vanderbilt kind of in the 80s went the same direction. So kind of Florida assumed the number 2 spot in our rival chart. And then kind of Georgia, because they were a top level team, was kind of number 3, and Kentucky kind of fell to 4. And then really Vanderbilt and Kentucky were kind of 4 or 5 in the modern era. I'm thinking mid 70s to now, my lifetime, the last 40 years. But having said that, Tennessee fans they might be they might be a little bit of a reactionary fan base, particularly on social media. But they are a smart fan base, and they know their football in Knoxville, and they recognize that 4 wins out of the last 5 years constitutes a rivalry. They also understand the importance of Nashville as a recruiting market. If you go back and look at the last 5 years, the 247 composite index of high school prospects, Nashville is one of the top 5 recruiting cities in the nation. And Tennessee has been one of the top 5 states in the nation. Jeremy Pruitt is a great recruiter. He understands the importance of owning your state, particularly when you're at a big state school against a private city school. You have to win those battles. Of course, Tennessee recruits the state of Tennessee and Atlanta, and he cannot afford to lose the state of Tennessee. If you look at Clemson roster, there are 2 5-stars, one of which went to high school right in the shadow of Neyland Stadium, and one of which his father is a national championship winning quarterback at Tennessee. It was a terrible embarrassment to Butch Jones to lose those 2 players to Clemson. Of all places, Cade Mays went to Georgia. His father played at Tennessee. So in the last throes of the Butch Jones era, they lost 3 5-stars, literally in the shadows of Neyland Stadium, 2 of which were heritage players. So Pruitt understands the importance of that Nashville recruiting base. A lot of great players coming from Nashville. I could go down the roster, but it would take way too long. So he understands that, and Tennessee fans understand that this is a growing rivalry. It's a rivalry that Tennessee owned for many years, and Tennessee fans want to keep it down there. They do not want Vanderbilt to grow into a actual serious rivalry. But the bottom line is you have to recognize you've lost 4 games out of the last 5 years. Before you start talking about your 75, 32, and 8 overall record, you probably need to take care of today, the here and the now, before you start talking about that 75, 38 or 75, 32, and 8 all-time record. So yeah, Tennessee fans understand what this is, and they understand that Vanderbilt's emerging, and they want to get that back to the way it was, rather than have a new reality of Tennessee Vanderbilt. They want to keep it what it is before it gets a name, before the rivalry gets a name.
Mike will cut you a break. It's not 4 out of 5; it's 4 out of 6.
4 out of 6. You're right.
14 and 15.
You're right. It just seems like 4 out of 5. That's how bad the last 10 years have been.
And especially with the last two being by double digits, with Vandy not only winning the game, not just squeaking by, but playing much better, right, Kate?
Yes, they did play much better. Especially the 2016 season was amazing. That game,
Yeah,
we 3 points in the second half.
That left a really bad taste in a lot of Tennessee fans' mouth. That was really the proverbial nail in the coffin for Butch Jones. Tennessee was playing for an Orange Bowl bid in that game, and they just came out and just got rocked in the second half. Kyle Shermer looked like Dan Marino during that game. It was one. I've watched a lot of football. It was one of probably the top 10 college football quarterback performances I've ever seen. Every ball he threw right to the receiver's hands in strides. It was easily Shermer's best game in his entire career, without a doubt, hands down. And that game left a lot of a bad taste in a lot of Tennessee fans' mouth because Tennessee thought they were going to the Orange Bowl until that game.
I don't know how Kyle Shermer.
I'm sorry, Sugar Bowl.
But Kyle Shermer might single-handedly be responsible for keeping Derek Mason's job because the quarterback situation before Shermer showed up was abysmal.
It was abysmal.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, but I think if you look at the running back he had during that time period, Kate, what was your running back's name? Ralph Webb, he was a tremendous player, and he really bridged.
He compiled a lot of stats. I don't know that he was that great a player. He was a very good player.
He compiled a lot of stats in the Southeastern Conference running the ball.
He was nowhere close
without a quarterback.
He was nowhere close to the players that he ranks with in terms of rushing statistics all time in the SEC. He's not Bo Jackson or Nick Chubb, Herschel Walker, or any of those other guys.
Because he played at Vanderbilt. That's why.
Right, because he played at Vandy. Vandy gets no respect on anything.
Mark, he had 4,000, almost 4,000 yards in the SEC without a quarterback for 3 years. Without a quarterback.
What's he doing now?
Who cares?
He's with the Bucks. He's on the practice squad for the Bucks.
He wasn't that talented to that degree.
He was on the Patriots, and I think he just went to the Bucks the last week.
Sure, and we have no idea what he's doing. And Ralph Webb is tremendous. Yes,
his birthday, be nice.
He squeezed all the talent possible out of, and he was in a poor situation in which he had to carry a team. I get that, but he was not a dynamic back.
Oh, you have exceedingly high standards for running backs, Mark.
Okay.
Mark, you keep talking. I want to look up what his career stats were. No, go ahead.
His yards per carry was just not an exceptional back. He was a good back.
So
I disagree, but okay.
Time is good.
If we looked at starting running backs on upper echelon teams throughout the country, he would play on, it would be scattershot of how many carries and workload he would get on most teams. He was good.
He was good.
He was a good player. He was a good player.
4,000 yards of rushing in the SEC, Mark.
I know what his stats were. We would do top 5 lists before all these seasons, and I would say he's a good back. But he was not a great back, and that's being partially proven by his lack of status and playing time in the NFL.
Who cares about the NFL?
Well, I understand that doesn't.
Who's the greatest quarterback in the history of college football?
I don't know. Tim Tebow.
Okay, and who would you have as number 2? Maybe Tommy Frazier?
I don't know.
Okay.
Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tommy Frazier.
Stop with Roger Staubach. You're doing that to get to me. So Tommy Frazier and Tim Tebow, and how where they have like maybe 16 starts total in the NFL?
Okay. I am the person who on a regular basis makes the same argument and distinguishes to people that argue with me that the NFL productivity should not take away from evaluation of a college player, that they're two different. That wasn't the argument. The argument was this is showing that he was not an ultra talented back at Vandy. He was a very good back.
You've been in the cold weather too long, man.
I agree with that.
It was similar to you, Mike, telling me that Drew Lock was the best quarterback in the SEC before the season started. And who did I say the best quarterback in the SEC was?
No. What I said
Tua Tagovailoa. That's who I rated number one, and you went crazy.
False. What I said was Drew Lock was the best returning quarterback in the SEC.
You rated him number one. I rated Tua number one.
Returning quarterback. The reason I didn't rate Tagovailoa as the number one returning quarterback is because he played all of 3 full quarters in the previous season.
Well,
and I would still say Drew, as far as a pure quarterback, I would still say Drew Lock's probably better than Tagovailoa.
Okay.
But what we discussed that episode was the best returning quarterbacks in the SEC. And yes, I use productivity and statistics as a large percentage.
I do as well. But that guy's a special case.
What guy?
Tua. That was easy to see that he was going to come back and be the best quarterback in the league.
He's like the reverse Ralph Webb. Mark, you or I could probably throw for 50,000 yards for Alabama. I mean, you give anybody 10 seconds in the pocket, they can throw it to one of the 5 stars out of the backfield.
Sure.
Juggling the 5 stars out of the backfield. You and I could be a winning quarterback at Alabama. I mean, Tagovailoa is a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But he's like the anti-Ralph Webb. Ralph Webb was the only weapon Vanderbilt had for like 2 full seasons.
Correct.
And he still rushed for 4,000 yards.
Mike, you clearly know the difference between just a game-changing type of back, dynamic back, home run hitter versus a guy who's very good. They had one at Northwestern for the last 4 years, and he was grinding out 1,400-yard seasons, Justin Jackson, but he was not a dynamic, excellent running back.
Look,
he was a grinder.
I'll give you very good, but you said he was just good. He's more than just good. Is he Travis Etienne? No. Is he Dalvin Cook? No. Is he in that? Is he in the elite level? I would not call him elite, but you're more than just good when you rush for 4,000 yards in the SEC. Period. Bottom line.
You just basically restated what I've been trying to say for 15 minutes.
Oh, you said he was good. I never said he was elite. I said he was better than good. There's something between elite and good.
That's true.
Okay.
That's where Ralph Webb exists.
Thanks, Mike.
So my point was originally that Kyle Shermer has done much to keep Derek Mason's job by winning 5 or 6 games instead of winning 2 or 3 because the quarterback situation was abysmal before that.
Correct. You are correct.
Thanks, Kate. You expect to win on Saturday, Kate. How confident are you?
I think that Vandy is going to pull off the win. I think they are. They have been. I think they're gelling at the right time. I think they know what they're up against. I think they know what they're going to do. It's kind of, they always play Tennessee tough. I think it's kind of one of those games that they come out ready for. So not that they're not ready for the other games, but there's always teams that play a little bit tougher. Even when the Cowboys were 1 and whatever, the Dallas Cowboys, they always played the Redskins tough. So I'm saying, I think that Vandy always plays Tennessee tough. Always.
Interesting analogy there.
Well,
all right.
Old Cowboys fan, so.
Sure. Myself as well. So Tennessee, of course, trailed in this series, as Mike somewhat outlined, at 19-2 at one point, and they have run roughshod ever since at 73-13. And your confidence level on this one, Mike?
I think it's a toss-up, 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, the keys for Tennessee are clear. Number one, and most importantly, you got to come out ready. You have to come out mentally ready, and you have to get out to a fast start. In the games that Tennessee has lost this year, they've given up an average of like 2.5 touchdowns in the first quarter. So one, you got to come out mentally ready. You're going to be on the road. You have to come out. It's going to be a little bit weird for guys whose first game because they're going to come out. And again, this is just stating a fact. This is not knocking anybody, but they're going to come out on a road game, and it's going to be majority orange in the stadium. So it's going to be kind of weird for the first time guys, but they're going to be on the road, and they've got to be mentally ready. They kind of, I'm going to be honest with you, they kind of look mentally checked out with Missouri. And I don't know what it was. 2, on defense, you've got to make Vanderbilt one-dimensional. I think Tennessee is going to try to stop the run game, and I think they're going to play a lot of zone coverage, and they're going to have to tackle once those receptions are made. But the key on defense is to make Vanderbilt one-dimensional. That's what they did against Kentucky. Kentucky was not able to pass the ball effectively whatsoever, and that's what allowed Tennessee to stop Benny Snell Jr. on the run game. And then on offense, you just have to work around the offensive line. You have to use quick passes and run into the edge to kind of mitigate the lack of ability on the offensive line. If you look at the Auburn game, the Kentucky game, I thought Tyson Helton called a great game. A lot of quick passes to the outside, and then when you want to take your shot, you take it deep to Marquez Callaway and Josh Palmer, two guys who stand 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", who can go up and get the ball. Callaway is the best 50-50 guy in college football, hands down. I will argue that with anyone. Go look at the film. You might not know him, but go look at the film. He's the best 50-50 guy in college football. So it's on offense, it's about getting the ball to the playmakers on the edge quickly to avoid offensive line breakdowns. On defense, it's about making Vanderbilt one-dimensional and then making tackles when you do. And then the third thing is they got to come in mentally prepared to win the game and not crumble under the pressure of having to win a 6 game to get to a bowl.
Vanderbilt is a 3.5-point favorite in this one.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, you get 3 points for being home. So, just like I said, 50-50 toss-up game.
Okay.
No, that's a standard betting line.
It is.
That's for being home.
Yes, it is. I will have to weigh my options, and I try to do my best to not take my guests' opinions into account when I'm wagering my bank account.
It's going to be a good game no matter what. I think they're both going to play really tough. So, I think it'll be a good game to watch.
35-24 against the spread this year, Mark. I'm just saying.
You are?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You can read our tailgate pick'ems on lastwordoncollegefootball.com if you would like to.
35-24 against Kate. Do you take part in this?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. I would have to look at my record against the spread, but I, like a man, I pick all the games. I take them all on. So I pick all top 25 games. Don't shy away from any of them.
This would not be a top 25 game.
Not even close.
So I may not touch this one. The rest of it I probably won't. But yeah, I'm about 17 or 18 games above 500, but I've picked more games, so my percentage is not that.
Just a quick aside, who are you taking in the Army Notre Dame game? That is a top 25 game.
Ooh, yeah.
The USC Notre Dame game.
I'm sorry?
You said Army Notre Dame.
No, Army Navy. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. They're playing in 2 weeks. I have no idea.
2 weeks. They probably got early line out.
Yeah. All right.
That's the wrong
Michael Ball.
The right answer is Army.
Kate Halliburton from Last Word on College Football. And the group of 5 is certainly not my specialty either. All right. So join them on Last Word on College Football for all the fun. And follow them on Twitter, and you may catch a few barbs going back and forth.
At Last Word on CFB, we're also on Facebook, Mark, and we have writers for teams all across the nation, not just Tennessee and Vanderbilt, but teams from all 5 power conferences. LastWordOnCollegeFootball.com.
Good stuff. We'll see you both. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you.
You too.
And we will see you soon, and enjoy the football.
I will. Thank you.